Good evening, history enthusiasts. Welcome to this in-depth journey through one of the most transformative events in world history, the American Revolution, also known as the American Revolutionary War, fought between 1775 and 1783. This was not just a fight for independence, it was a brutal, bloody, and inspiring civil war that would birth a new nation and reshape the global balance of power forever. To understand the revolution, we must travel back to 1763, when the 7 Years' War ended and Great Britain found itself deeply in debt. Parliament decided the American colonies, which had fought bravely and helped win the war, should pay their fair share of the bill. Taxes like the Sugar Act and the Stamp Act were imposed. Taxes without representation in Parliament. Colonists responded with protests, boycotts, and the famous Boston Tea Party in 1773. Tensions exploded. British troops were sent to Boston to enforce the law. On April 18, 1775, Paul Revere and William Dawes rode through the night to warn colonial leaders. The next morning, on April 19th at Lexington Green, British soldiers fired on a small group of Minutemen. "If they mean to have a war, let it begin here," declared Captain John Parker. The shot, heard round the world, had been fired. The revolution had begun. In the following weeks, the British marched to Concord to seize colonial weapons. They were met by an entire army of colonial Minutemen. The British suffered heavy casualties in what became the battles of Lexington and Concord, the opening shots of the war. In June 1775, the Second Continental Congress met in Philadelphia and appointed George Washington as Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army. On July 3rd, Washington took command on Cambridge Common. The war had officially begun. One of the most dramatic early battles was Bunker Hill on June 17, 1775. American forces under William Prescott defended Breed's Hill with only 1,200 men against 5,000 British troops. Despite running out of powder twice, the colonists held their ground for 2 hours. British forces eventually took the hill at terrible cost. More than 1,000 British casualties compared to fewer than 400 American. As one American leader said, "From the nature of the ground, the courage of the men, and the number of our adversaries, I have concluded to attack the enemy in his works." It was a stunning victory that proved the colonists could fight on equal terms. The British never forgave the humiliation. Throughout 1775 and early 1776, the war dragged on with little progress. Washington's army was small, poorly supplied, and often retreating. The British, under General William Howe, had control of most of the major ports, and were slowly pushing the Americans back. But a turning point was coming. On July 2nd, 1776, the Continental Congress voted overwhelmingly for independence. 2 days later, on July 4th, Thomas Jefferson's Declaration of Independence was formally adopted and sent to the world. "We hold these truths to be self-evident," it declared, "that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." It listed the king's tyrannical actions and announced the 13 colonies were now free and independent states. This document would inspire the entire world. The war intensified. British General Howe landed in New York and captured Manhattan. Washington's army barely escaped. In the fall of 1776, the British won a series of victories, and American morale was dangerously low. But in December 1776, Washington made one of the boldest moves in military history. He crossed the icy Delaware River with just 2,400 men on Christmas night. The surprise attack on Trenton gave the Patriots a huge victory and restored hope. "These are the times that try men's souls," Washington would later write in his famous 1776 letter. His leadership and the victories at Trenton and Princeton turned the tide. In 1777, the British launched a major campaign under General John Burgoyne to split the colonies in two. The Americans, led by Horatio Gates, defeated him at Saratoga in New York. The stunning American victory was a complete surprise. "The Baron of Saratoga," Burgoyne called it bitterly. News of the defeat reached London, and it convinced France that America could win. France became the first foreign power to recognize the United States and began supplying weapons and troops. The revolution had gone from a colonial rebellion to an international war. By 1778, the conflict had widened dramatically. Spain and the Netherlands joined France against Britain. The British now fought on two fronts. In the north, fighting was often a stalemate. In the south, the British shifted their strategy and won early victories, capturing Savannah and Charleston. Many Southern loyalists joined the British cause, but the Patriots refused to give up. The turning point came in 1781 at Yorktown, Virginia. General George Washington, with French help from the Marquis de Lafayette and Comte de Rochambeau, trapped British General Lord Cornwallis and his 7,000 men at Yorktown. On October 19, 1781, the British surrendered after a bitter siege. It was the decisive victory that ended major combat in the north. Cornwallis's surrender shocked the British government. Many in Parliament now believed the war could not be won. Peace negotiations began in Paris. On September 3, 1783, the Treaty of Paris was signed. Great Britain officially recognized the independence of the United States. The 13 colonies were now a sovereign nation. The war that had lasted 8 long years had finally ended. But the story was not over. The American Revolution had been far more complex than a simple fight against Britain. It involved loyalists who remained loyal to the crown, Native American tribes caught in the middle, enslaved Africans who fought on both sides, and women who ran farms, businesses, and even fought in battle disguised as men. It was a civil war as much as an international conflict, yet it succeeded because of extraordinary leadership, sacrifice, and the unwavering belief in the ideals of liberty. The results were astonishing. The United States was born from blood, fire, and determination. It would grow from 13 small colonies into a superpower that would shape the 19th and 20th centuries. The ideas in the Declaration of Independence, equality, natural rights, and government by consent of the governed inspired revolutions across the world, from France to Latin America and beyond. So, what can we learn from the American Revolution? It reminds us that freedom is never free. It requires courage, sacrifice, and sometimes the willingness to fight. It shows that a revolution begins with a single spark. One shot at Lexington, one signature on a document, one victory at Saratoga, and can grow into something unstoppable. This war was won not by one hero alone, but by the collective courage of ordinary men and women who believe that all men are created equal. It was a revolution that proved the world that the colonies could fight and win against the mightiest empire on earth. If you enjoyed this journey through the American Revolution, please subscribe, like, and share this video with fellow history lovers. Comment below which battle you find most inspiring or which leader you admire most. And if you want to learn more, check out the books and documentaries linked in the description. Thank you for watching. Stay curious, stay free, and remember, the revolution didn't end on July 4th, 1776. It continues in every person who fights for justice, equality, and liberty today.